Welcome to the 2020 edition of the His House Christian Fellowship Annual Meeting. I'm Ron Megan, Chairman of the Board of Directors. Since so much is different about this meeting than in the past, maybe I should be calling it the coronavirus edition of the annual meeting. We're meeting virtually instead of in person at one of our supporting churches. We're doing our presentations online, and we're doing our voting and approvals online as well. And we didn't get a chance to have fellowship and snacks before the meeting at our church. Everything has changed. Well, maybe not everything. God is still the same, Jesus is still the same, and the salvation message is still the same. The process we're using this year to spread the news of Christ on college campuses is different than it was last year. But then again, it's different than it was 50 years ago too. And how about back when the first church was first started in Jesus' time? Way different, but still the same message. With God's help and with our faithfulness, we can still spread the message of Jesus Christ on college campuses. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I pray that our meeting tonight will be a blessing to all of us, and that this year will be a banner year for His House Christian Fellowship. Back to you, Scott.
Okay, it's recording.
Hello, my name is Scott Austin. I'm the Executive Director for His House Christian Fellowship. And thank you for joining us for our 2020 annual meeting. This is actually a re-recording because we had some significant technical difficulties, but we want to include this part as well for you to watch later if you didn't get to watch it live. Tonight, hopefully you heard from Ron Megan, the chairman of the board, introducing us to the meeting. You'll hear from Dan Wheat, our secretary. You'll hear from Ron Jansen, our treasurer, giving us a financial report. And you'll hear a story from a student, Kaylee Jones from Saginaw Valley State University. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad you're here. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Weed, and I'm the board secretary. As such, I am responsible to announce the proof of due notice postcard that was mailed to you. It should have looked something like this. This proof of due notice allows persons who have given at least $100 to His House in the past year to be corporation members and entitled to vote on various matters before you today. I also want to present and summarize last year's meeting minutes from September 30th, 2019 at University Christian Church. Highlights include the following. We celebrated our 50th annual meeting and 50 years of serving and ministering to college campuses. Gary Hawes reminded us of various milestones over the years and recalled his athletic accomplishments. You voted to approve an amendment to the bylaws to allow for up to 15 directors, and you elected for re-election 4 directors. Scott Austin then closed our meeting by pointing us to the next 50 years of ministry. The actual minutes of last year's annual meeting are available in the His House office for anyone who would like to read them. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thanks for your patience. It's been a year of challenge for campus ministry. We had our own challenges here tonight, didn't we? But it's been a year of challenge. The first challenge I want us to remind ourselves of is a financial challenge that we faced. In that phase, we faced that partly because of how well we've been doing lately. If you have your financial report with you, take a look at the column labeled actual for year ended 8/31/19. This tells us where we were last year. And as you look down that, you see we had revenues of $1.347 million. That's the second straight year of near record giving that we had that year. We only spent $1.331 million last year. And so we had a surplus at the end of the year of $16,422. And if you go down to the bottom of that left-hand column, go to the far left at the bottom, you'll look at the general fund. That brought us to a starting point of $17,518. So we were in great financial shape, but we set a budget of $1.394 million for this year that we're going to come up to now. So because we had been doing so well, we said we think we can do just even a little bit better. So there's a financial challenge for us to start the year. We had a second challenge this year in March when the COVID-19 challenge hit us full strength. A pandemic hit America, and Michigan in particular was hit hard. We had businesses shutting down. We had stay-at-home orders. We had campus ministry had to change. We couldn't meet as often. We couldn't do things the same way. And the economic downturn presented that financial challenge with even a greater degree of difficulty. So how did we do? How did we handle the financial challenge that we had for the year? Well, when you're in a tough spot, the first thing you do financially usually is control your expenses. How did we do controlling our expenses this past year? Let's take a look. If you look at the right-hand columns to the two right-hand columns on the right-hand side of that page, we're going to look at the expenditures, what we budgeted versus how we actually spent money. And if you go down and look, you see we budgeted for $1.394 million. We only spent $1.331 million. That's $62,000 under budget. That's a good thing when you're trying to face a financial challenge. Only 4 of the 11 categories that you see listed there were over budget, and the other 7 were far under budget. So we did a really good job controlling expenses. Our expenses were 4.5% under budget, and that's pretty good considering most of our expenses are personnel costs and benefit costs, 82%. So if you can't control the other 18 too well, then it gets tough on those who are doing ministry on campus. So we controlled our expenses well. The second thing we did was we hoped for good revenues in the midst of crisis. We had budgeted, like I said, for the most income that we had ever budgeted for in the past. So how did our revenues come in? Let's take a quick look. If you look at the top here, the top 2 right-hand columns, we budgeted for $1.157 million. We didn't get that much. We got $1.004 million. That's 106 below what we got the previous year and 152 below what we were hoping for in that coming up year. Second line item in there is rent. We budgeted for $236. We only got $218,000 in. That's $19,000 below what came in the previous year and $18,000 or so below what we hoped for in our budget. When you put those two numbers together, we're down $171,000 in income from where we wanted to be. But you'll see a new line item listed here that we've never had on this page before. It's called the Paycheck Protection Program. That's the federal relief program that was set up by the federal government to help businesses with wage paying to keep their people working and the expenses related to that. Well, we qualified for that program. We applied for that program. We received money from that program, and we used those monies for specific expenses that were outlined in that program. And we fully expect that that loan would be forgiven because we followed all those guidelines. What a help it was for us. It infused $240,339 into our income stream. And so our income for the year ended up at $1.463 million. That's the highest it's ever been. That means our income was up 5% above what we hoped for in the budget. That was a real help that came from that program. So what's the status at the end of our financial year on August 31st of this past year? If you go down to the bottom, we've been talking all general fund. We're going to talk general fund on the bottom, and then we'll add a few other funds into it. So go to the bottom of your report, under the line general fund at the left, and you'll remember that we started the year with $17,518 in our surplus, in our balance there. You see the receipts from up above, 1.463. You see the disbursements from above, 1.331. And you see now that we have a balance of $149,621 surplus in our general fund. That's a great place to be to start this upcoming year. Now there's a few other financial categories in there. We might as well talk about them when we're here. There's designated gifts and events down at the bottom. That one started at $588,000. It's now improved to $679,000. Those are designated funds that our donors give to support staff members who are raising their own support, or for designated events and future plans and things like that. Another one is the Gary L. Hawes Mission Scholarship Fund. Started at $45,000, is now up to $53,358. Had some money come in. We didn't spend much. We couldn't do a lot of things that we planned to do in the spring on spring trip mission trips. Then there's memorial funds that started at $105,000. It dropped down to $65,000. But when you add all those up, we had a great year. We started the year with a total bank balance of $757,000, and by the time the year was over, it was up to $946,000. Those are great spots to be. A great spot to be. And beyond that, if you go to the second page, we have 19 properties that we purchased with original purchase prices of $1.438 million that we use for ministry and our financial assets for our ministry also. So we're in a solid financial position to go into this next year, which will be another year of challenge, we think. So what's the future hold for campus ministry? We're going to learn, and we're going to adapt, and we're going to figure out how to minister in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. We're already doing that. We're unsure what the pandemic's going to bring come this fall and winter, but it's a new year, and we'll find out. So what should we do? What can you do? I'll give you three things that came to my mind. Number one, we should pray. We should pray for God's protection, God's provision, and God's wisdom as we enter this new period of life ministering on campus. We should plan. We should learn new ways to minister to students and to share the gospel, and new ideas on financially how to do the work that we need to do. And third, we should persevere. We should become more reliant than we've ever been on God's grace and on His people's generosity to take us through this hard time. As supporters of the campus ministry, we thank you. Thank you for partnering with us. Thank you for praying for us. And thank you for letting God use you to help share the gospel of Jesus Christ fruitfully on our campuses. And may He bless this campus ministry as we move forward in the coming year. Thanks again for all you do to help support this ministry. It's a blessing to God and a blessing to us.
Hello everyone, my name is Kaylee Jones and I'm a senior this year at Saginaw Valley State University. I joined His House as a freshman, and last year I decided to be a part of the welcome team on campus, and that has been a true honor. In this season it may look different, but that's okay because the mission is still the same, to reach out and say a simple hello and get to know someone. Now, in this season of COVID and all the different rules that are on campus right now, we have realized that hello has been a cry in isolation. Just a cry to say, hey, I'm here. And a hello in return has also stood in for, I see you, I value you, and I appreciate you for being you. Students and staff of His House have heard those cries and answered with another hello saying, I see you and I value you. And I am so encouraged by this. In fact, the first week of class, I had actually 2 freshmen that joined our live stream chat, and they just said hello and they wanted to join in the fun, and I got the honor of then later down the road that week meeting in person with them and making a more personal connection. It has been so cool to watch that because we can't always gather in a big group, we are reaching out more than ever to these people that are coming in and wanting to get to know them. And that simple hello has led to an hour or 2 conversation. And sometimes we realize like they're a friend of a friend who used to go to His House. And that is so cool just to see God working in and through the lives of other His House students and staff. So we're realizing this season may look different, but it's an encouragement to us because when we are apart we seek to be a part of something. We're forced in isolation at times, and we want to be a part of community. And so people are reaching out and making connections. And his house is a place where so many, including myself, have felt seen and heard and valued and loved. And so 50 plus years of ministry has all led to this. And it may look different than what we thought 50 plus years of ministry looks like, but that's okay. It's the season we're in, and all we have to do is say a simple hello.
Thanks, Ron. Encouraging news on the financial front. That's very exciting. As we mentioned in the chat, I do want to let you know this time, audio version, all of our board members were elected and approved. Thank you for voting. These are people who seek to lead and guide the campus ministry, and they're playing an important role for us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for churches, for you as individuals, for praying for this campus ministry, for financially supporting it. Any good news that we have is because of you and what you have done as well. So as I look back over the last year, I guess I wanted to start by remembering our past. 51 years ago, the campus ministry, His House Christian Fellowship, was started at Michigan State University by Gary Haas. And after a few years, the campus ministry took off. The gospel, the Christ-centered community, and the life-giving relationships were contagious. A better contagion than the coronavirus. It spread to Central Michigan University, to Western Michigan University, Lake Superior State University, Ron Jansen's alma mater. It then spread to University of Michigan, Ferris State, Northern Michigan, Grand Valley State, and then we come to the times that I remember. And Saginaw Valley State was started, Michigan Tech, Eastern Michigan University, and Northwestern Michigan College was started. And so the campus ministry has spread because it is good. We spread the gospel, and people are benefiting from hearing the good news, and they want more. 51 years later, campus ministry is still essential, and I would say it's even more important now than it was 51 years ago. In the state of Michigan, we have over 500,000 college students. We have 30,000 international students. That's a lot of people we haven't reached yet, and we would like to be able to tell them about Jesus and get to know them. We have a unique opportunity in campus ministry. If you're between the ages of 18 and 23 years old, chances are you're going to find yourself on a university campus. There's not that many, relatively speaking, university campuses in Michigan. So we know where everybody in that age group wants to go. They come searching for meaning. They come lonely. They come lost. They come hurting. And we have an opportunity to be there with them, to help them, and to give them the good news about Jesus. And others come ready to make a significant impact in the world. Our future leaders are at our universities right now. If we can talk to them about Jesus, if we can introduce them to Him, we can set their lives and all the people they influence on a totally different course. So campus ministry remains essential, and that's why I'm still excited, and I will never be less excited about campus ministry. I do want to pause and recognize our workforce, you might say. We have 10 campus ministers on our 12 campuses. We have 16 associate campus ministers on our campuses as well. These are people whose focus is on evangelism and discipleship. They are focusing on meeting students, building relationships with them, telling them about Jesus, helping them grow in Christ, and preparing them to be sent out to be missionaries in whatever it is that they're doing after college. One notable staff member who's been on staff for 25 years, he's my campus minister when I was a student, that's Brad Haas. And so if we were live with an audience, I'd ask Brad Haas to stand up, and I'd have everybody applaud for him. So, Brad, wherever you are, stand up. And we're applauding for you. And if you're with Brad right now, make sure you applaud for him. Brad, we really appreciate you and all you have devoted to campus ministry. Your wisdom and your expertise is invaluable. This year was a strange year. I'm almost pleased that we had technical difficulties because it's a great symbol for the way this year went. You make a plan and you have to throw out the plan sometimes. And you adapt, and that's how it's gone. Just to remember, because so much happened so fast, to remember on March 11th of 2020, Michigan State University suspended in-person classes. At that time, we had several mission trips for students that were gone and spread throughout the country in New York and Florida and some in Mexico. I think the team that was in Mexico didn't find out about their universities closing and going to online-only classes until they crossed the border. As they crossed the border, they got a flood of text messages telling them that classes were going to be online, that they were going to have to quarantine for 14 days when they got back on campus. And there was just a general confusion about what do we do. We continued to meet with college students in that time. We continued to love them and to talk to them about Jesus. On March 24th, the governor issued her stay home, stay safe orders, and we all were asked to stay home unless we had a job that was critical to the functioning of everyday life. And because of that, we were in our houses, doing ministry inside our houses, and we only had access to the people who lived with us. And that meant that college students, we couldn't meet with them in person. We had to adapt, and we found things like Zoom. Everybody does Zoom now, but back on March 21st, Zoom was much less common. But we learned to use that. We learned to use FaceTime calls or the phone as an actual phone. We used text messages. We used Facebook Live to broadcast some of our His House main meetings. We used internet chat rooms like Discord. We did anything that we could. And then, on May 22nd, in-person gatherings were allowed to resume with some significant limitations. But boy, were we glad to get out of our houses. We were so glad to be able to meet with students again. We had smiles on our faces. Now, we couldn't have our large group meetings, but we were able to meet with small groups, and we've been finding ways to meet in much smaller settings or meet outdoors since then. But some really good things happened, even in the middle of our lockdown. I heard a couple stories that I'll share the rough details with you. We had Lindsay, one of our Western Michigan students, who went home because classes were online, but she still had a job, and she worked that job, and she had a coworker that she spent time with, and she talked to her coworker about Jesus, and she wanted more information. So Lindsay set a time to sit down with her and explain the gospel to her, and she got the privilege of baptizing her not long after that, that's just awesome. I love hearing about students taking ministry seriously and spreading the gospel even to the people that they know. That's what we're trying to do. Another example is even in the middle of our lockdown orders, we had a baptism. Someone who'd been seeking Jesus for a long time finally was ready to commit, but we weren't allowed to leave the house, but we didn't let that stop us. It was too important to wait, and so we had our campus ministers at Michigan Tech baptize someone in the Portage Lake, which was quite cold, as I remember from when I was up there. So that's where we've been. Looking forward, we are still meeting new students, although it looks different. If you're on campus in Michigan right now, there's not a lot of people who are walking past you. The once bustling times when tons of people would be walking back and forth between class, that's not what's going on right now. If you go to the library or go to a public place, you have to sit by yourself. But we're still finding ways of meeting new students. We're still talking to Jesus about them. We're still surrounding them with a Christ-centered community. And they're still responding because they're eager to have community that's meaningful. Right now, some of our meetings are in person and some are online. Some of our larger meetings are outdoors, and you can imagine as it gets colder this week, that's prompted us to think, what's next? How are we going to adapt to the weather now? But basically, we will do anything we can and everything we have to in order to be with college students, to talk about Jesus with them, to challenge them to take the next step in their walk with Him. Another exciting thing for me is we have 8 interns and apprentices this coming year. Last year we also had a good number as well. These interns and apprentices are former students who are willing to give up a year of their lives in order to learn how to reach college students with the gospel. I'm excited about our interns and apprentices because they are our future. Regardless of where they end up in ministry, there will be 8 more harvesters, bringing the good news wherever they are, advancing the kingdom of God. And whether they're on campus next year or whether they are somewhere else, God will be using them to advance His kingdom. And that's our goal, advancing God's kingdom. And that is what is happening on college campuses. If you are here tonight, you're playing a role in what God is doing through His house, through your prayers, through your financial support, through your direct involvement with college students. You're participating in God advancing His kingdom. Thank you. Thank you. Keep praying. Keep giving. Keep serving. We're going to see some really good things on campus this year. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking through to the end. And apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully you at least got a laugh out of it. I'm going to pray and close us, and we'll stop the recording. Father, you are so good. Your goodness to us shows up in so many ways, and one is just how it is that you're working in college students' lives. That they are coming to know you, they're growing in you, and they're reaching out to their friends and sharing the gospel with them. We love that. Father, we ask for your blessing this next year on campus ministry. We want to see you at work and open our eyes to see that, and give us whatever we need to participate in that. Lord, we love you, and we're excited to walk with you this next year. Amen.